long before the rise of Rome, before the pyramids of Egypt pierced the desert sky, before the empires of Greece and Persia shaped the ancient world, there was a land between two rivers, a land where humanity first began to write its story. Between the Tigris and the Euphrates, in what is now modern-day Iraq, and parts of Syria and Turkey, the first true civilization emerged. The Greeks would later call it Mesopotamia, the land between rivers. But to the people who lived there, it was simply home. And in that fertile crescent of soil, watered by unpredictable floods and blazing sun, humanity took its first steps into history. Around 3500 BCE, in the southern plains of Mesopotamia, a people known as the Sumerians built cities unlike anything the world had ever seen. Uruk, Ur, Lagash, Eridu, names that would echo through millennia. These were not scattered villages of farmers. They were organized urban centers with walls, temples, marketplaces, and complex social hierarchies. At the heart of each city rose a towering ziggurat, a massive stepped temple dedicated to the gods who were believed to control the floods, the harvest, and the fate of every human soul. It was here in Sumer that writing was born. Pressed into wet clay with a reed stylus, the earliest form of writing, cuneiform, began as simple accounting marks. But over centuries, those marks evolved into literature, law, mathematics, and myth. Through clay tablets baked by the Mesopotamian sun, we hear their voices even today. We read the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest surviving works of literature, telling a story of friendship, loss, and the search for immortality. In its lines, we glimpse a people who struggled with the same questions that still haunt us. What is life? What is death? What does it mean to be remembered? As centuries passed, power shifted. Around 2334 BCE, a ruler named Sargon of Akkad did something revolutionary. He conquered the Sumerian city-states and forged what many historians consider the world's first empire. From the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean, the Akkadian Empire united diverse peoples under one centralized authority. It was no longer just cities competing for survival. It was empire. And with empire came standing armies, imperial administration, and the idea that one ruler could command lands far beyond the horizon. But empires rise, and empires fall. By the end of the third millennium BCE, the Akkadian Empire collapsed, weakened by internal strife and possibly environmental change. In its place, new powers emerged. Among them was Babylon. Under King Hammurabi, who ruled from 1792 to 1750 BCE, Babylon became the dominant force of southern Mesopotamia. Hammurabi was not only a conqueror, but a lawgiver. His code of laws, carved into stone and displayed publicly, laid out rules governing trade, family, crime, and punishment. An eye for an eye, it declared, a principle that would echo through later legal traditions. Though harsh by modern standards, it represented a monumental step toward codified justice. Law was no longer arbitrary. It was written, visible, and meant to apply across the kingdom. Yet even Babylon would not remain unchallenged. To the north, a fierce and disciplined people were rising, the Assyrians. Centered around cities like Ashur and later Nineveh, the Assyrians built one of the most formidable military machines the ancient world had ever seen. By the 9th and 8th centuries BCE, Assyrian armies marched with iron weapons, siege engines, and ruthless efficiency. Kings like Tiglath-Pileser III, Sargon II, Sennacherib, and Ashurbanipal expanded Assyrian control from Egypt to the mountains of Iran. Their empire was vast, their power unmatched, but their rule was often brutal. Rebellions were crushed without mercy. Entire populations were deported to prevent resistance. Fear became a weapon as powerful as the sword. Yet alongside their conquests, the Assyrians preserved knowledge. In Nineveh, Ashurbanipal assembled one of the ancient world's greatest libraries, collecting thousands of clay tablets that preserved literature, science, and law, including copies of the Epic of Gilgamesh. Even the mightiest empire, however, cannot escape time. In 612 BCE, a coalition of Babylonians and Medes sacked Nineveh. The Assyrian Empire collapsed in fire and ruin. From its ashes rose the Neo-Babylonian Empire, led by King Nebuchadnezzar II. Under his reign, Babylon flourished once more. The city became a marvel of the ancient world, adorned with massive walls, grand temples, and the famed Ishtar Gate. Later tradition would speak of the Hanging Gardens, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, though historians still debate their exact existence. But fate had other plans. In 539 BCE, a new power emerged from the east. Cyrus the Great of Persia entered Babylon without significant resistance. The Neo-Babylonian Empire fell, and Mesopotamia became part of the vast Achaemenid Persian Empire. Under Persian rule, the region remained economically vital and culturally rich, but it was no longer the center of an independent empire. The torch of dominance had passed on. Centuries later, Alexander the Great would sweep through Mesopotamia in 331 BCE after defeating the Persians at Gaugamela. Greek influence spread across the region during the Hellenistic period, blending with ancient Mesopotamian traditions. After Alexander's death, his generals divided his empire, and Mesopotamia came under Seleucid rule, followed by the Parthians and later the Sasanian Persians. And then, in the 7th century CE, another transformation reshaped the land. The Arab-Islamic conquests brought Mesopotamia into the rapidly expanding Islamic Caliphate. The city of Baghdad, founded in 762 CE by the Abbasid Caliph al-Mansur, rose near the ancient heartlands of Mesopotamia. It became one of the greatest centers of learning in the medieval world, home to the House of Wisdom, where scholars preserved and expanded upon Greek, Persian, and Indian knowledge. The rivers still flowed, but the world had changed. Over time, invasions, internal conflicts, and shifting trade routes altered the region's prominence. The Mongols sacked Baghdad in 1258, ending the Abbasid Caliphate's golden age. Centuries later, the Ottoman Empire absorbed Mesopotamia into its vast domains. And in the modern era, the borders drawn after World War I transformed ancient lands into the nation-states we know today. Yet beneath the soil of Iraq, beneath layers of dust and conflict, lies the foundation of civilization itself. It was in Mesopotamia that humanity first built cities, first wrote laws, first recorded stories, first mapped the stars and measured time in 60-minute hours, a system we still use today. It was here that agriculture expanded, irrigation networks transformed landscapes, and trade connected distant cultures. The world we live in was shaped, in ways both visible and invisible, by the people of this ancient land. Their ziggurats have crumbled, their empires have vanished, but their legacy endures. In our writing, in our laws, in our cities, and in our endless quest to understand who we are. In the land between two rivers, humanity learned to dream in stone and clay. And from those first fragile marks pressed into wet earth, the story of civilization began.